Hello everyone! In this video, I'll show you how to optimize toolbars in Looker Studio by limiting the number of data points in visualizations. Too many data points can slow down your reports and make visual materials difficult to read. We'll explore practical techniques for data optimization, performance improvement, and enhancing the perception of your reports. So let's move on to the demonstration. In this report, we've prepared several examples of visualizations that use too many data points. Let's start with the first chart. We see a chart with gross profit indicators for the entire period of data available in our data source. And this is already the first point towards optimizing this visualization so that it is perceived better and, accordingly, we improve its efficiency in terms of data loading. First, what needs to be done and what I recommend doing for all reports is to set a default date range. Most often, we don't need to use the entire date range. For this, we can, for example, set a default value that is not the entire period. In this example, we'll use the previous year and reduce the number of our visualization points, both in tables and charts, to the previous year. As we can see, the report has already become a bit better because we've reduced the amount of data to 1 year. But how else can we improve this report to make it even more readable? For this, we can go to the settings. And if we have dates by days, but we need to view them not by days, but by months, or even by quarters and years, we can change the settings of our date field that we're using and group it right here by changing the display date. So, we select the date, and then we have options for how to display it. In this case, let's choose year and month. We select year and month, and we see that the report has already become better. And now we can actually look at our gross profit by months, which is how it's most often used in our work. In your data, there might be other examples, but in any case, now this visualization, whatever values you substitute, already looks much better. Also, for example, if we click drill down here, it will by default substitute an additional option for sorting and selecting our data. Now we've added another year, and accordingly, if we need to create another report that will show us changes by years, we can change it already within the chart itself. And here we see that it will be collapsing by years and months. For example, if you're looking at it over a longer period. So we've dealt with dates. Let's move on to the next reports and visualizations. So next we see another visualization that displays our items in a pie chart. We see that there are many values here, and because of this, it's very difficult to focus on any single one or on a top selection of our values for our income or expenses in this case. So, in the chart itself, we can reduce data points using style settings. We go to Style Settings, and then we go to Settings for how many slices we want to display. Currently it's set to 20, we can, for example, set it to 10, and mark everything else as Group Others. If we don't set this, then it will disappear completely from our chart. If we leave it, then accordingly it will be in our chart. That's the difference. This technique of reducing data points can also be applied to visualizations like column charts, stacked column charts, and so on. Another point that clutters our report and can be reduced and optimized is when we create two charts that display slightly different values but actually talk about roughly the same thing. For example, in our first chart, we display money amounts for transactions by our items. And here we display money amounts as well, but only by categories. In reality, these are just different ways of breaking down the same monetary metric. To avoid splitting this into two visualizations and simplify our report, we can combine the two reports into one. How? We can go to any of these reports and add an additional breakdown through dimensions. We select an additional breakdown and add the breakdown we need to set. We set, for example, a category, and now within one visualization, we can switch and create the same visualization without having to take it to a separate one. And now we can delete it. Accordingly, we now have one visualization that will serve us for both these indicators. Further, as an additional bonus, we see that we have, for example, values for several units in our tables and data. Now we'll reset our filters, and we, for example, in our reports want to use more simplified options, such as not being interested in one division, but only interested in another. Accordingly, we can use our filters either on the chart or on the entire report. About filters and how to make them at the level of the entire report or page level, you can look in our previous videos. Accordingly, through additional filters, you can additionally remove unnecessary values and reduce the amount of data. Another point is how to use not only a breakdown by categories, combining our visualizations, but also how to combine our visualizations into one using additional metric indicators. For example, we have a totals breakdown by income, expenses, and net profit. If you need to see all three of these values at once, that's good. But if you want to see only net profit with the ability to change values to display income or expenses sometimes, we can use optional metrics. When we select them, we can set the values we want to display, for example, income, and for example, expenses. Now we have an additional optional metrics icon. Accordingly, by default, we see net profit, but also within one visualization, we can switch values and they will display the indicators we need, that is, our optional metrics. Thus, we will reduce the number of visualizations, slightly reduce space, and be able to fit more on one page, while not overloading it with unnecessary data and at the same time displaying all the necessary parameters. Let's bring the report into order to see how it might look without additional data point load. In total, compared to the first version of the report, I'll now show how it was. We've made a much more simplified and better version, which at the same time will not take too much time to load data as they are already reduced, and will be better perceived by the user. That's all for today. Give it a like if you enjoyed the video. If you still have any questions, ask them in the comments.